Hello, welcome to another session of engineering mechanics, in which we are currently doing the chapter of simple stresses and strains. In this chapter, we have seen what is strain, what is simple stress, what is simple strain, and we have seen some problems, how to solve the simple problems about stresses and strains, and also we have seen the stress strain curve of a ductile material, and we have seen what is proportionality limit, elastic limit, ultimate stress, breaking stress, lower yield point, higher yield point, and all such things. So whenever load is applied on a body, the cross section of that body offers some resistance. So load by that area which offering the resistance is called the stress. So stress units are load by area units, that is Newton per mm square or Newton per kilonewton per meter square, such units. We say 1 Newton per meter square as 1 Pascal. So generally we express in terms of Newton per mm square, therefore they will become 1 megapascal. Similarly, sometimes we also use 1000 Newton per mm square, then it will become gigapascal. The condition in which the stresses are uniform, that condition we call it as simple stress. That is, whenever we apply load, it need not be uniform throughout the section. The stress need not be uniform throughout the section. But when axial stress is applied and average stresses are found on every part of the cross section, then every point on the cross section, then that such stress we call it as a simple stress. Similarly, whenever when any force which tend to elongate the body, such stresses, such axial stresses we call them as tensile stresses. Similarly, whenever axial forces which try to decrease the length of the body, such stresses compress the body, therefore they are compressive stresses. They result in decrease in length of the body. Similarly, we have seen what is stress, that is the force is applied. Here tensile forces are applied on the body and a cross section. Similarly, every cross section along this length will offer resistance. It is not only one cross section which is offering the resistance. All such cross sections anywhere between from one end to another end, each cross section is offering some resistance. That is why at every cross section we have stress. Similarly, we have seen strain when a body is subjected to some axial load, that is either tensile or compressive. Depending upon the direction of the load, there will be a change in length. So the ratio of that change in length to its original length we call it as strain. Where in case of simple stresses, the strains will be simple strains. Therefore, we can say strain epsilon E is equal to delta L by L. We have seen also the Hooke's law, which says that stress is proportional to strain within the elastic limit. Up to that elastic limit of that particular body, of particular material, the stress is proportional to strain. That is, stress by strain is always a constant. That constant is, we call it as the modulus of elasticity or Young's modulus. Therefore, stress by strain is equal to E, modulus of elasticity. So whenever there is a force, when some force is applied on a body, the body is deformed. So we find that along the length there will be some increase in length, that is delta L. To find the delta L, we know that is from Hooke's law, stress by strain is E, stress is force by area, E strain is delta L by L, change in length by original length. Therefore we can find out delta L is equal to PL by AE. So P, force into length of the body, L by area of cross section into modulus of elasticity will give you the delta L, the change in length, that is the deformation. We have seen some examples about the simple problems about how to find the stress, how to find the strain, how to find the modulus of elasticity by knowing stress and strain, and also we have found how to find the change in length by knowing the modulus of elasticity and applied loads, cross section, length, etc. We have seen such problems. We have also seen for hollow sections also we can find out the stress, strain and modulus of elasticity by knowing the cross sectional area. That is, if it is a circular pipe or a tube, we have the cross sectional area will have outer diameter minus inner diameter. That cross section, the area will be pi d4, pi capital D by 4 minus pi small d by 4, that is pi into d4 minus pi d square minus d square by 4. That is the area we learn. We have calculated the stresses and strains in also the modulus of elasticity in the bars. We have also seen the concept of working stress and factor of safety. That is, whenever we design any structure or any component, we do not stress the material up to its yield strength or ultimate stress. That is stress and strength. Stress is the applied load. For applied load, strength is the bodily resistance. So we do not stress any body, any material up to its ultimate or yield stress. So we reduce it by a factor called as working stress. Therefore, working stress will always be less than the ultimate stress or yield stress, depending upon whether the ductile material or it is brittle material. So yield stress or ultimate stress divided by some factor of safety will give you the working stress. We have seen also the bars of varying sections. That is, suppose there are some bars with different sections, varying sections, but those sections are prismatic, that is, they are having the same cross-sectional area. Then we have seen how the stresses will be, that is, since only two forces are applied on the ends, that is P and P, all the three portions have the same force P. Therefore, each portion is stressed according to its cross-sectional area. So stress is P is constant by A1 and A2, A3, etc. Similarly, the elongation will be delta L1, delta L2, delta L3, depending upon how many portions you have, and we will get delta L is equal to P L1 by A1E plus P L2 by A2E, etc. So since P and E are constant, we can say P by A into L1 by A1 plus L2 by A2 plus L3 by L3 and so on. So this is how we find the total elongation of a body with varying cross sections. We have seen some problems about this concept, that is a bar with varying lengths. Then Here we have seen three sections, different sections of different lengths. The areas of the sections are diameters are 50, 40 and 30, and the lengths are 300, 400 and 500. They are applied a load of 200 kilonewtons, that is a tensile load. Then we will see each portion has its own area and length. Therefore, the stresses and strains are different for each portion. Therefore, stress in each portion is P is constant, because for entire portion only one type of force is applied, that is only tensile force applied at both ends. So they are in the body is in equilibrium. Therefore, P by A1, stress 1 is equal to P by A1, stress 2 is P by A2, and stress 3 is equal to P by A3. That is stress in the first portion, the middle portion and the last portion. Similarly, we calculated delta L, that is the elongation in each portion. So elongation in each portion is 1.52, we have seen in the first portion, and in the second portion is 0.318, and in the third portion it is 0.7. So by adding the individual elongations, we get the total elongation of the bar. Now we see some principle called as principle of superposition. That is a principle which is useful for finding the when a body is applied by different forces along the same axial axis. Then we will see how the principle of superposition can be applied. This is very handy principle to find out the stresses in bars which are having different different loads in them. So let us go into what is a principle of superposition. How when the elastic body is subjected to action of various forces simultaneously, then their effect at a point on a given plane is algebraic sum of individual effects of each of the forces at that point separately. That is, when various forces are acting simultaneously on an elastic body, the effect we get out of those several forces is equal to the effect by individual force. That is like it is like our moments, the principle of moments theorem, or the Verinon's theorem, or by the collinear forces, the sum of forces, that is sigma v is equal to 0 or sigma h is equal to 0. Similarly, this principle also says that separately the effect of several forces acting on one body simultaneously is equal to the effect added by the individual forces separately. That is the principle of superposition. So we'll try to see what are under what condition this principle of superimposition can be applied. The stresses should be within elastic limit. So this principle of superposition is also applied for only under the condition of Hooke's law, that is within the elastic limit only. Also, if there is any deflection, that deflection should not affect the applied load. Also, the structural stability should not be affected. In these three cases only, we can use the principle of superposition. Let us see how to illustrate the principle of superposition. So we will take a simple example for a rod of length 1 meters and areas of cross section of 500 mm square and a pull of 150 kilonewtons. Here let us have a rod of 1 meter or 1000 mm with 500 mm cross section applied with a load of 150 kilonewtons. So here if we see that the body is pulled by 150 kilonewtons. So we get if we calculate stress for under this load, we will have stress is equal to load by area, that is 150,000 newtons by 500 mm square, we get 300 newton per mm square. Since stress by strain is modulus of velocity and strain is equal to stress by modulus of velocity, strain we get 1.5 into 10 to the power of minus 3 without any units, because strain is only a ratio, so we don't get any units. And also if you see the change in length for that body under the load of 150 kilonewtons, we see delta L is equal to PL by AE, therefore P is 150,000, length is 1 meter by area is 500 and E is 2 into 10 to the power 5, we get 1.5 mm elongation for the body. So the result is for full load, that is 150. Now we will separate these loads, that is simultaneously 100 and 50. We have divided that 150 into two parts, that is P1 of 100 and P2 of 50 kilonewtons are acting simultaneously. That is, instead of P is equal to 150, we are using P1 plus P2 is equal to 150. So if we separately consider the results, that is, in the first case for the force of 100 kilonewtons, we have the same length and cross-sectional area. Now consider the force of 100 kilonewtons. Then the length is 1 meter, same rod. Instead of 150 kilonewtons, we are calculating separately the effect of the 100 kilonewtons. So 100 kilonewtons if we apply separately, calculate that in this 150 kilonewtons we are calculating only for 100 kilonewtons the effect, and then we'll calculate the effect for 50 kilonewtons separately, and we'll match the result so that the method of superposition can be illustrated. Here the stress one, that is for 100 kilonewtons load, the stress will be 100,000 by 500 mm square, that is 200 newton per mm square. The stress will be 200 newton per mm square. Similarly, the strain will be equal to stress by modulus of velocity, that is 200 by 2 into 10 to the power of 5, that is 2 into 10 to the power of minus 1 into 10 to the power of minus 3. 1 into 10 to the power of minus 3 without units. Since the original length is 1000 mm, we get strain is equal to delta L is equal to delta L by L is equal to strain. So delta L is equal to strain into original full length. So our strain is equal to PL by E. Anyhow, we can calculate. Then here it is easier because strain into original length will give you 1 into 10 to the power minus 3 into 1000. That is delta L is equal to 1 mm. This 1 mm result and stress of 200 Newton per mm square and strain of 1 into 10 to the power of minus 3 are exclusive for 100 kilonewton load. Similarly, if we see simultaneously, if we see another load of 50 is acting, let us say this 150 consists of two loads of 100 and 50. So we have calculated for portion of 100. Now we will calculate for 50 the effects. What are the stresses, strains and increasing lengths? Because it is same rod which has the same modulus of velocity. So modulus of velocity is constant, area of cross section is constant, the length is also constant. So now by applying 50 kilonewton force, we get stress is equal to stress 2, that is due to 50 kilonewtons. We get P2 by A, that is 50,000 newtons by 500. We get 100 Newton per mm square stress due to this 50 kilonewtons. And also strain E2 is equal to sigma 2 by modulus of velocity, that is 100 newtons by Newton per mm square by 2 into 10 to the power 5, that is 0.5 into 10 to the power of minus 3. 0.5 into 10 to the power of minus 3 is strain developed due to this 50 kilonewtons force. Similarly, if you see change in length is equal to strain into original length. So delta L is equal to strain into original length. Therefore, 0.5 into 10 to the power of minus 3 into 1000 will give you 0.5 mm. So the 0.5 mm. These results are exclusively for 50 kilonewton load. So we have to remember, we have seen that entire 150 kilonewtons results due to 150 kilonewtons load, and we have seen results for 100 kilonewtons load and also 50 kilonewtons load. We will superimpose those results so that we will see that the results due to 150 kilonewtons should be equal to results due to 100 and 50 kilonewtons separately added together. So if we observe the results, the three cases, we can realize that total stress due to 150 kilonewtons, that is total stress is equal to delta 1 plus sigma 1 plus sigma 2. That is, we will see initially for 150 kilonewtons we have seen stress is 300. Here if we see for 100 kilonewtons we got stress as 200, and for 50 kilonewtons we got stress as 100. Therefore, if we see here, stress 300 is equal to 200 plus 100. So we got this stress by superimposing the stresses, the same result, that is stress due to 100 and stress due to 50 kilonewtons. If we superpose, that is if we add them, then we will get the same result. So that means the forces when the forces acting simultaneously along the body, suppose 150 are considered to be acting simultaneously, their effects will be equal to the force, that is 150 mm, 150 kilonewtons. Similarly, if we consider strains also, due to 150 kilonewtons, the strain was 1.5 into 10 to the power 5. Due to 100, it was 1 into 10 to the power of minus 3. Due to 50, it is 0.5 into 10 to the power of minus 3. Therefore, if we add, we will get the initially it was 1.5 into 10 to the power of minus 3. Here, by superposing these two strains, due to 100 it is 1 into 10 to the power of minus 3. Due to 50, it is 0.5 into 10 to the power of minus 3. If we add, it is 1.5 into 10 to the power of minus 3. So strains also matching. That is, we can by superposing the loads, we are getting same strains and same stresses. Also, we can see it is the rule applies for the elongation also. So here, if we see elongation due to 150, the elongation was 1.5 mm. Due to 100, the elongation was 1 mm. Due to 50 kilonewtons, the elongation was 0.5 mm. So if we match the results, delta L is equal to delta L1 plus delta L2. That is, 1.5 was due to the elongation due to 150 kilonewtons. For 100, it is 1 mm. For 50 newtons, it was 0.5 mm. So now we can see 1.5, 1 and 0.5 due to separate loads, and also due to, that is, simultaneous loads equal to the same load. That means we can say by superposing there is no difference. That is, when they act, that means we can add the algebraically we can add the forces, or we can superpose the forces, one on the above, one on the other, when they act along the same axial line. So it is like the collinear forces. That is, when collinear forces act depending upon the direction, they can be added algebraically. Whereas when it is going to left, it is minus, we have considered earlier in the first chapter, and also towards right it is positive, towards left it is negative. So simply by knowing their direction, we can add algebraically, that is by sign. So here, because 150 both are acting in the same direction as that of 150 kilonewtons, they are simply superposed. So the results can also be superposed to get the same result as that of 150 kilonewtons. So this is the principle of superposition. This is how we will use this principle in some cases. Many times we need to find out the some simultaneous forces when acting, then we need to find their net effect by simply superposing one above the other, or by simply adding or subtracting depending upon their direction. So in the next concept is the free body diagrams. That is, for any structure to be stable, the forces should be in equilibrium. We have seen the equilibrium condition, that is, moments and forces should be sum of the algebraic sum of moments or algebraic sum of forces should be equal to 0. That is, we have seen the three equilibrium conditions, that is sigma Fv is equal to 0, sigma Fh is equal to 0, and sigma m is equal to 0. So here, since they are acting along the axis, axially loaded, so we are not worried about the moments, only we are worried about the forces which are acting axially. So whenever they are acting axially, they are collinear. So algebraic sum of their sum of the forces will give you the actual force in the total force that resultant in the body. Similarly, when a structure is in equilibrium, then the parts are also in equilibrium. That is, when entire structure is in equilibrium, the parts should also be in equilibrium. That is, when structure is in equilibrium, the parts cannot be moving, or when the parts are moving, the entire structure cannot be in equilibrium. So therefore, whenever the structure is in the state of equilibrium, the component parts, if the structure is divided into some components, then those components should also be in the state of equilibrium. Then we can imagine that a portion of the structure is removed, and that the forces acting on that portion can be calculated, and we know that this portion should also be in equilibrium. That is, the net forces should be equal to 0. The section will be equilibrium under applied forces and internal forces in the cut member. So whenever we remove that portion, the applied forces, the applied external forces and internal forces, they compensate each other, they balance each other, and the body will be in the state of equilibrium. Here, let us see this concept. Let us see that a body, a rod, has sections A, B, B, C and C, D. So here the body is pulled by four forces, that is at ends it is pulled by P1 and P2. At the point B, at the portion B, at the section B, there is another force P3. Till now we have seen only the axial forces which are acting at the ends of the body. Here now we are seeing some forces which are acting at the intermediate portions also. Then at this section there is another force P4 acting here. So this body has four forces P1, P2, P3 and P4. These are the four forces which are acting on the body. That body has three portions A, B, B, C and C, D. For the equilibrium of this bar which is acted upon by axial forces, the sigma h should be equal to 0. Sum of the forces should be equal to 0. Therefore, we can say all the left acting forces acting towards the left side should be equal to the forces acting towards the right side. Therefore, we can say P1 and P4 are acting towards the left and P3 and P2 are acting towards the right. Therefore, for the equilibrium of the body, all these forces are sigma h should be equal to 0. That is P1 plus P4 minus P2 minus P3 is equal to 0, or P1 plus P4 should be equal to P2 plus P3. That is all right moving forces should be equal to the left moving forces for equilibrium. If at all they are not equal, then the body will be in the state of motion, because it will not be in the state of equilibrium. That is, sum of the forces, horizontal forces should be equal to 0. Let us see what happens if we separate these three portions and we observe them separately, analyze them separately. Let us see, the AB portion is removed. Let us see, this AB portion is removed, which has a P1 force acting towards the left. So for its equilibrium, there should be some force which is equal to P1 on the right, or we can say this P1 is equal to P2 plus P3 minus P4, or this force should be equal to P2 plus P3 minus P4. That is, P3 and P2 are acting towards right, P4 is acting towards left. Therefore, in this body, to be in equilibrium, it should be equal to P1. That is, the right force should be equal to P1, that is equal to P2 plus P3 minus P4, because P1 plus P4 is equal to P2 plus P3. That is for equilibrium. Therefore, for this portion to be in the state of equilibrium, the left going portion should have some balancing force on the right side of the body. Therefore, here it is easy. Whenever we see here, when at AB, at A, if P1 is acting to the left, at B there should be some P1 to the right to make it a equilibrium, in the state of equilibrium. Similarly, if we straight away go to the right portion, here also we can see if P2 is acting, this portion is removed. So to balance P2, there should be some force P2. So this finding the forces in these portions is very easy, because on the left portion to the left there is P1. So the balancing force will be P1 for the equilibrium. That portion will have the force of P1. The right portion will have the force of P2, because here we can see, if we cut here to the right, this portion, this is P2, so automatically to balance that there should be P2. When we come to this middle portion, it is slightly confusing. So we have to see this portion here in the middle of this portion. If we see the force, let us cut this here itself. This is the cutting line. So if we remove this portion, we see on the left we have one force P1 going towards right, towards left, and P3 towards right. So P3 minus P1 is the net force. Or if we see from this section to the right section, P2 is going towards right and P4 is going towards left. So net force is P2 minus P4. So here it is P1 minus P3 or P2 minus P4. That is the, or in true sense it is P3 minus P1 so truly speaking this should be minus P3 plus minus P1 plus P3 or minus P4 plus P2, because they are to the right. We do not know what is the magnitude of P3 and P4, but because they are acting to the right forces are P3 and P2, therefore left forces are P1 and P4, therefore the net amount will be, net magnitude of the force will be minus P1 plus P3 minus P1 plus P3. If you see here minus P1 plus P3, here if you see the forces on the left, that is P1 is going to the left and P3 is coming to the towards right of the section. That is if you see the left portion of the section, then the net force by the principle of superposition, we have that P1 and P3 can be algebraically added. So P3 minus P1 will be the net force, or if we consider towards the right portion, it is P2 minus P4. That is what we have shown here. It is minus P3 minus P1 or P2 minus P4, because they are same. Here if we see the first equation, P1 minus P3 is equal to P2 minus P4. If we rearrange this, if we send this P3 there and P4 here, then the forces will be equal. P1 minus P3 should be equal to P2 minus P4. That is why we have seen here P3 minus P1 is equal to P2 minus P4. So by separating these portions, we have seen that the what are the forces, net forces acting on that portion. Since those portions are equal, that in the state of equilibrium, the forces to the left will be equal to the forces to the right. That is, either they will be axially in tensile, they are prone to, they are applied by tensile forces or compressive forces, depending upon the magnitude of the P3 and P2 and P3 and P4. It is this P3 and P4, depending upon the magnitude of P3 and P4, this section will be either compressive or tensile. We cannot say. But this portion, because P1 is pulling, this force, the first portion will be, the left portion will be automatically under tensile stress. Here also we can see this P2 is pulling the right portion, that is CD portion. Therefore CD portion is under tensile stress. That is, there will be elongation in CD and also in AB, because these forces we know they are pulling the body, but the central portion we do not know whether it is pulling or pushing. Depending upon the magnitude of P3 and P4, we will find out, we will know whether it is compressive stress or tensile stress. If 3 are in the tensile stress, then the elongation will be delta L of AB plus delta L of BC plus delta L of CD. If at all BC portion is compressed, then the algebraic sum will be delta L is equal to delta L1 plus delta L3 minus delta L2. That is, the middle portion will be under compression. So there will be reduction in length. The two portions, there will be elongation. If suppose 3 portions are having the same tensile forces, then automatically three sections will be added. That is delta L1 plus delta L2 plus delta L3. If first and third portion are in tension, then delta L1 plus delta L3 will be the elongation, and if the middle portion is compression, then it will be minus delta L2. Similarly, suppose if 3 are in the compression, then automatically it will be minus delta L1 minus delta L2 minus delta L3. That is, sum of their elongation will be, it will not be elongation, that will be compression. So we have to see whether each portion is compressed or elongated. So if each portion, so we have to add separately whether, depending upon whether they are elongated or compressed, the entire delta L, that is entire length, entire elongation will be equal to the sum of the elongation, sum of the changes in length, this we can say. So if the change in length is positive for 3 portions, we add all the positives. If some portion is negative, we will subtract. If all portions are negative, we will add them, and the sum will be totally negative. So this is the advantage, or this is the necessity of the free body diagrams. That is, we will be able to find out whether that particular portion is subjected to compression or tension, and also we will know that what is the force acting on each portion. That is why in cases where the force is not uniform throughout, then we have to find the portions where the forces are changing. Here in the first portion we have the only P1. In the second portion we have two forces, that is P3 and P4, which are acting. So hence, if we separate that portion, then for the equilibrium of this portion, that is the middle portion, either the force should be P1 minus, that is P3 minus P1, P3 minus P1. So if P1 is more, P3 minus P1 will become negative. That is, it will become force which is moving towards left, or it is pulling, or it is tensile. So similarly, if here, if P4 is greater than P2, then it will be a tensile force. If P4 is less than P2, then it will be a tensile force. So here in the middle portion, we have to see how the difference, what is the difference between P1 and P3 or P2 and P4. Then only we can find out whether it is under compression or tension. But for the end portions, it is easy. By observation itself, we can say it is P1 is moving, it is pulling, and P2 is also pulling. Then the body is in that portion is in the tensile state. So this is the advantage of having the free body diagrams. So whenever there is a full structure, full rod or anything, when separate forces are acting at separate sections, we have to see what is the effect of those simultaneous forces at that particular, between that particular section. So here, since we have three sections, we have considered three portions. Suppose there may be two sections or three sections, or any number of sections. So each section we should consider, and then only we will know what is the final elongation, by knowing the elongation on each portion. So that is why we need to have the free body diagrams, so that we can analyze each portion separately. So in this session we have seen the concepts of the free body diagrams and also the principle of superposition. That is how the principle of superposition works. That is, when simultaneous forces are acting on a body, so if those simultaneous forces, when they are bundled together, what is the effect, or if they are separately dealt, what is the effect. So the effect will be same. That is why we can use the principle of superposition when number of forces act simultaneously. Similarly, for finding the forces in each portion, we have to know when the forces are different in each portion, we have to separate each portion and analyze them separately for knowing the amount of magnitude of forces. So this is how we will get along with the bars which have different forces at different sections. Now in the next session we will be seeing we'll solve some problems using the principle of superposition and also the free body diagrams. So till then, thank you.